You've heard it countless times before. Nobody wins in nuclear war. It's the theme of movies, books, video games, and countless other mediums. But it hasn't stopped people from trying. During the Cold War, both superpowers sought ways to quickly defeat the other and avoid retaliation. So is it possible? First, this episode's sponsored, Raid Shadow Legends. I've had a lot of fun with this game on my phone, and now it's available on PC. I found it real easy to get into and start having fun, whereas some of these other modern games seem to be so complicated that I end up just giving up on it. You start with a champion and get right into it. As you go, you get additional champions, and level them up with seemingly endless numbers of possible upgrades, so you can take on bigger and tougher enemies. One thing I really like about the game is the strategy element. It's not just about having the strongest champions. As you fight, you can choose from different attacks, some of which are better at different things. Also, at times it's smarter to take out certain enemies first, as they might have a quicker attack. On top of that, I love the graphics. They were incredible on the mobile version, and even better on the computer. Also, speaking of mobile, you can switch back and forth between mobile and your PC without losing your progress. It's light and quick to download, even on my notoriously slow internet. Right now, the highly anticipated Battle Pass is on. Season 1 is live, and you can win some awesome rewards, including free energy refills, gems, upgraded artifact sets, and new epic and legendary champions by fulfilling the daily and weekly challenges. So what are you waiting for? Go in the video description, click on the special links, and you'll get 50,000 silver and a free epic champion as part of their new player program to start your journey. Good luck, and I'll see you there. The current thinking on avoiding nuclear war rests on something called deterrence. The United States calls it assured destruction, or mutually assured destruction, but every nuclear power has some similar deterrent strategy. It's discouraging someone from attacking you out of the fear for the consequences, which in this case would be a nuclear counterstrike. This is the reason why we've never had a nuclear war, as any attacker knows full well that they will suffer unacceptable levels of losses in a counterstrike. But the whole idea rests on the ability of a defender to be able to survive long enough to launch their own counterattack. So, in theory, if you could completely negate the ability for your enemy to respond, you could win. During the Cold War, both superpowers went to incredible lengths to make sure their nuclear weapons could survive a strike by the other, or at least survive long enough so that they could retaliate. Many methods have been devised to make it more difficult for an enemy to wipe out their nuclear forces. Both nations spread out their nuclear missile silos so that one strike couldn't destroy them all. In the US, you'll find that no two silos are within 5 kilometers of each other. This means an enemy attempting to take out your nuclear forces would need to use a separate warhead for each and every silo. Road mobile ICBMs were developed. These could move around at any time, making targeting them extremely difficult. And nuclear missiles were placed on board submarines, which could remain hidden anywhere in the world's oceans. This is one of the most effective. The ocean is massive, and finding an enemy's ballistic missile submarine is nearly impossible, let alone finding all of them at the exact same time. You could, theoretically, build enough ICBMs to take out all of an enemy's missile silos, and use satellite imagery along with other intelligence assets to locate road mobile missiles, but destroying all missile submarines is virtually impossible. This option is the most expensive though. Not only do you have to build the missile and launching mechanisms, as you do with silo-based weapons, but also design, construct, operate, and maintain extremely complicated submarines to carry them. You also need to build several of them. The basic rule of thumb has been, for every 3 missile subs, only 1 will be deployed at any given time. So 1 deployed, another likely in port between patrols, and the other undergoing maintenance. So, the US, for example, which currently operates 14 ballistic missile submarines, you can expect to have no more than 5 on patrol, ready to strike at any given time. These are just a few of the many methods used to increase the survivability of nuclear weapons. Some pretty crazy ideas have been developed over the time, such as tethering these missiles to the ocean floor, launching them from blimps, burying them in sand, and many more. But is there a different way? Instead of taking out all of an enemy's nuclear forces, what if you could take out their leadership before they were able to authorize a counterstrike? Every nation has its own policies regarding the use of nuclear weapons, and many keep those policies secret, but most require some form of authorization before they can be used. This helps prevent against accidental launches, or officers going rogue, or even a terrorist group from using these weapons. due to the massive implications any use of nuclear weapons have. That authorization typically resides with the heads of state, a president, prime minister, etc. Due to this, many nuclear powers have set up sophisticated methods to ensure their leaders, or other authorized parties, will have the ability to quickly issue a counterstrike before it's too late. Back in the 1950s, before the development of ICBMs, the delivery method of nuclear weapons was bombers. Once an order to strike was given, it would take several hours before they would reach their targets. This gave time for the defender to prepare and launch their own bombers, and also time for diplomacy, calling up the leader of the attacker and trying to work out a deal to avoid nuclear war. With missiles, that time is greatly reduced to approximately 30 minutes, much less time to prepare, and makes diplomacy impossible as missiles cannot be recalled like manned bombers. So speed is key. You need to be able to quickly authorize a strike. The most famous example of this is a nuclear football in the US. Anywhere the president goes, this briefcase follows him. Inside of this are strike options and nuclear launch codes, which would then be transmitted through the command to issue the launch of a nuclear strike. Russia has a somewhat similar device called the Chiket. This also never leaves the side of the Russian president and can be used to authorize the use of nuclear weapons. So, if you could launch a strike quick enough to take out the leadership before they could act, you could stop their ability to retaliate. During the Cold War, US nuclear ballistic missiles in places like Turkey cut the flight time in half, from the 30 minutes of ICBMs to 15 minutes. Cruise missiles armed with nuclear warheads, like Glickam, could give even less time to prepare. These fly extremely low, avoiding detection on radar. An enemy might not have any time at all to react before it's too late. This was part of the reason for the inception of the INF Treaty, which banned these missiles. They were seen as destabilizing, as they could render deterrence obsolete. To combat this, other methods of ensuring an ability to retaliate were devised. If the US president was killed, the vice president has the ability to launch. And if he is killed, there is a whole line of succession to take the previous's place. To ensure that a single strike could never completely eliminate every government official in that line of succession, there is what is called a designated survivor. During events such as the State of the Union, where the president and most of the government officials attend, one person is always kept back, hidden in a bunker, so there will always be somebody alive to take over responsibility to retaliate. The Russians have a similar system, but have even taken it one step further with perimeter, better known as dead hand. We don't know exactly how this system works, but it's believed to be a semi-autonomous system that will order a counterstrike if certain parameters are met. For example, the loss of communications with command. This is likely not running 24/7, but turned on during an extremely tense crisis. Once triggered, it would launch a rocket which would fly across the country, broadcasting an order to Russian nuclear forces to launch their missiles. This way, even if the entire leadership is taken out in a quick strike, they would still have the ability to counterstrike. Another way to win a nuclear war that has been suggested is the use of EMPs. This would include detonating nuclear weapons high in the atmosphere or even in space, above an enemy, where the electromagnetic pulse emitted would fry all electronics, hopefully destroying their ability to retaliate. I'm not going to get too much into this, as, frankly, I don't know enough about it. I've read countless articles on the viability of such weapons, some of which say they would work, and others dismiss it. But even if it did work as advertised, it would be unlikely to completely stop a nation's ability to counterstrike. Missile silos and headquarters can be hardened, protecting them against EMPs, and ballistic missile submarines deep in the ocean would remain unaffected. So even if you could find a way to cripple an enemy before they could respond, you would need to be 100% certain it would be successful. If there is even the slightest chance that it could fail, you risk being totally annihilated yourself. All nuclear powers have put an incredible amount of effort to ensure the survivability of their forces, so that they can retaliate. So no, it's virtually impossible to win a nuclear war.